Being born of the eldest son Hakoda, chief of the Southern Water Tribe military, it was assumed that Sokka was born with innate strategic leadership qualities. Young Sokka looked up to his father for guidance, as that was a leader's responsibility, to teach the boys to become men. The classical school of thought believed that boys had to grow into men, that being a man was distinct from just being a grown-up male. It was the understanding that being a man was to understand your place in the larger public social network. Sokka came to realize that his place was to lead. Boys come into this world in need of much guidance as they are told to go against a lot of their desires. To properly fit into society, they ought to learn to harness and control those desires, ultimately redirecting those desires towards their proper good. Sokka's dad prematurely leaves for war, and this causes Sokka's healthy development to be overturned and manifested in an unhealthy way. Ultimately, Sokka overcomes his errors and learns to find his place on Team Avatar. In Jack Donovan's The Way of Man, he describes the tactical values of a man as strength, courage, mastery, and honor. In his hypothetical band of gang members, these were the traits most desired and respected when cultivated. Everything Sokka has done has been in the facade of being a man, whether that be his heroic attitudes or his more toxic ones. He's putting on the mask of masculinity in hopes that once he took the mask off, his face would become grown to be fitted to the mask. He is actively mimicking masculinity in hopes that one day he may become more masculine without trying. Sokka is shown downplaying his sister's abilities. It's his superiority complex. He's under the idea that he has to be stronger, so any ability his sister has he just refers to as magic and quickly dismisses. Magic, of course, can also be interpreted as something that's not real, so he's interpreting his sister's abilities as something that's not real. If they were, he would have to admit that his sister is stronger than him, and he can't do that. To him, being a man meant in part being physically the strongest. While such is partly true, it's still a rather sophomoric understanding of masculinity that likely only manifested due to his lack of a father figure. Physical strength is a tenet of masculinity because it connotes security. In The Boy and the Iceberg, Sokka is even shown flexing his muscles to himself in the reflection of the water. It's something he holds tight to himself. Sokka not being able to accept the fact that his sister and many other women are stronger than him is actually rooted in psychological insecurity, which would actually be considered a lack of masculinity in the classical sense. His lack of masculinity manifested into something that actually belittles women. His single-minded idea of a man is rooted in half-truths that ultimately led Sokka to make wrong conclusions about the reality he lives in. The family is supposed to properly fix those presuppositions about the world. In this case, the father models what a man is supposed to be to a boy. He shows them respect for women through the bond with his wife. He shows that while physical strength is important, resourcefulness, charisma, and tactfulness are as well. Those qualities are what men manifest in order to become leaders. He shows that women aren't supposed to be belittled but cherished and treated as equals. At least that's what a man is supposed to do subconsciously in an ideal marriage. It was designed to keep families together and raise the next generation properly. Sokka longs for this familial connection. Truly one of a man's longest desires is to feel needed and honored. Sokka wants to feel important and told a job well done by those he looks up to. That's what Sokka's dad would tell him if only he was around. Thankfully, he does get a taste of this in Bato of the Water Tribe. He still longs for it from his own father though, not only because he's the military leader, but also because he has a special connection to his father. This is what lies at the heart of Zuko's arc, but is also prevalent in Sokka's, even if they don't exactly call it honor. The next trait is courage. Sokka has exhibited this trait a lot. Not all men can be strong, but all men can show courage. Courage is your ability to take risks even when you are scared. In the first episode, Sokka displays this as he is willing to take on the entire Fire Nation ship by himself. Aristotle understood courage as the willingness to take the necessary risk to ensure the survival of the group. That is exactly what Sokka does when facing down the Fire Nation warship. Sokka may not be strong, but he surely is courageous. The next aspect of masculinity is mastery. This is a man's ability to cultivate and demonstrate proficiency at a given task. It's also the ability to not become dependent or independent, but interdependent. Dependency means you are powerless. Sokka ought not be dependent on his team while contributing nothing. Independent in Donovan's band would mean that you are alone. And when you're alone, you're more vulnerable. It also makes the unit less efficient because everyone has to do everything by themselves. Nobody wants to be lonely and vulnerable, and the band has to be efficient. Being interdependent means being reliable and working within your tribe. It is to understand your role and to provide something unique. It occupies that sweet spot where you can work with people, but also work on your own. This one I will also talk about later, as it is related to where Sokka finds his strength. The last aspect, honor, is one I hinted at before. It's what happens when people acknowledge all of the other aspects. Something essential to the Avatar world is that a man ought to know where he is needed. It's an important line his father tells him before going to war. Sokka was tasked to protect his sister and his tribe and later Team Avatar, but he didn't have the physical might to back it up. He had to figure out another way to do that, and that was being a tactful military leader and a resourceful engineer. Avatar provides a multifaceted examination of masculinity, and that, in my opinion, is no better exemplified through Sokka and his development into a leader. Sokka was tasked as the leader before his father went to war. To begin, he was not a good leader. He began by displaying condescending remarks to all the women he met, as explained when I was talking about his sister. He's underestimating the strength not only of his own crew, but of the people around him. Sokka is given another reality check during his encounter with Jet. In this episode, Sokka notices how Jet is able to so confidently and aptly rally his troops in order to get things done. Sokka has been struggling with this. He wants the almost rehearsed synergy with his group as well. While Jet's level of respect among his peers may be admirable, he did this by exploiting and manipulating those around him. This may be a quick way to gain trust, but it's ultimately illegitimate. Jet uses his silver tongue to woo Katara and persuade Aang. However, once it's made clear that he lied, they violently retaliated. Jet wasn't honest about his intentions because he knew it would threaten the members' cohesion. Jet sees his subordinates as a means to an end, not people with opinions and insights. Jet was also ruthless in his approach. He saw every situation as a zero-sum game. If his group wasn't utterly dominating, they were necessarily losing. Even just ignoring or leaving these innocent Fire Nation members alone wasn't enough. He had to actively destroy them, even if there was no reason to. On the Serpent's Pass, Sokka has a conversation with Suki that serves to highlight how Sokka doesn't need to protect everyone at all times, and that people can fight for themselves. Growing up in a village as the only warrior grown enough to fight, he felt as though he had to protect everyone. That he had to physically be there to fight off and sacrifice himself if need be. Now he's beginning to really understand his calling. He realized he doesn't need to physically protect everyone. This is a precursor setting us up for things to come. So here we see how a leader ought not to be. Sokka understands that as a leader, he has to account for everyone's need while also trying to reach his goals. He understands that he needs to be truthful to his troops. He understands his members are capable. Now, Sokka needs to understand this for himself. Sokka is purposely written without physical strength. However, he has an instinct to protect people as seen in his subtle relationship with Toph. How does the show reconcile this? Especially among the freak benders like Katara, Aang, and Toph. Sokka needs to become strong, but he does it in another way. The episode Sokka's Master solidifies his role in the group as the creative, tactical, and technological master. Donovan's tactical virtues of strength and mastery are finally fulfilled with these episodes. Sokka isn't complimented on his physical strength, but his tactfulness and resourcefulness. He became strong in a unique and personal way, and finding his place in the group made him interdependent. Sokka had realized his identity. Upon realizing his identity and understanding what that really means for him, he takes it upon himself to lead his troops on the Day of Black Sun. He can show his father, the man he's been trying to imitate, just how much he's grown. However, his time had not yet come. He flubs the whole thing and his father has to bail him out. Just because he understands who he is doesn't mean he can fully manifest it yet. As I explained in my Philosophy of Avatar video, it isn't enough to know who you are, but you need to work as hard as possible in that framework to become the ultimate version of yourself. Sokka laments the fact that he messed up. He does make up for it a bit after his father is injured during the siege and he has to lead. It's important to note that he asks Aang and trusts his judgment on an issue. He does this not because he's insecure, but as a leader, you should still be humble enough to take input from those around you. It shows empathy and compassion, which builds trust, something Jet would have never contemplated. At the end, still, Sokka faces a huge loss with a lot of his troops going down and being captured. This is a serious attack on his self-identity and recent understanding of his role as a man and a leader. He develops an inferiority complex again, although this one's of a different nature. He doesn't know what his role is anymore, but he still wants to prove to himself that he is useful. To do that, he goes and tries to free the prisoners on his own. This is a hyper reaction to a negative outcome. Zuko notices the turmoil in his heart and joins him on his journey. He doesn't try and stop him because he realizes Sokka needs to do this. On the mission, Zuko provides that brotherly companionship he needed. He needs someone to help him bear his cross, a brother to shoulder the pain. Zuko understands Sokka's desire to prove himself to those around him. That's partly what his arc was about after all. So he joins him and becomes that stable arc he can lean on, similar to what his uncle was for him. Together with the help of Suki, his father, Mei, and Ty Lee, they're able to leave. Sokka proves to himself that he's a capable fighter and he fully utilizes everyone's strengths in a way a leader ought to. Suki uses her acrobatics, Sokka's dad helps him with leadership and creativity, Sokka's the one doing the big lifting, formulating the main plan, Zuko is the loyal soldier providing support. They all work together to get the job done. Sokka had redeemed himself. Similar to the last bit, Sokka, Suki, and Toph fight off the airships and win using their complementary skills and teamwork. Toph does all the heavy metal bending, Sokka does the planning and helps support combat, and Suki helps a lot with combat. She's a better combatant than Sokka and, well, she can actually see. Sorry, Toph. When they need to land a surprise attack, Toph's metal bending does the job. When Sokka and Toph are on the edge fearing for their lives, Suki comes in to support them. All the while, Sokka is coordinating it. Sokka developing very solid leadership skills was his journey to becoming a man. Not someone with all the brute force, but someone who was intelligent, witty, and tactful. Sokka's arc sheds light on a different road to masculinity. And this was Sokka's journey to understanding masculinity and leadership. If you like this video and would like another side of masculinity, I've made a video on Zoro and Stoicism. If you want a whole book on masculinity and Christianity, you can pre-order my book, appropriately named Muscular Christianity. It talks about religion, masculinity, my fitness philosophy, my actual authentic workout program, and, things of that nature. Knowing how the views work on my channel, most of you guys are probably going to be watching this video after the book has been released, but if you aren't, you can pre-order it. All the links in the description. And finally, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Most of you guys aren't subscribed, and I'll catch you all next time. Peace.